with John Impemba and James Grande.
What is going on, everybody? John Impemba here with Keith Eister. Welcome into the Fantasy Alarm NBA DFS Game Day live show. We are back from the NBA All-Star break. Well, we're back. Grande's still on vacation, right? He'll be back with us here on Monday. So we have Keith joining us here once again. We'll have Justin Carlucci with us tomorrow. Keith did the preview show with me, and he did your NBA DFS playbook for today. A big 9-game main slate, a ton of news throughout the day, not only impacting this slate, but impacting the NBA as well, with Victor Wembanyama being ruled out for the season due to blood clotting issues in his shoulder. Spurs, thankfully think this is only going to be a 1-year thing and that he'll be ready to go for next season, but certainly tough. We obviously wish him well, but losing, a star player, young star player to that issue for the season, it's kind of a down way to kick things back off here, Keith.
Yeah, absolutely. Just awful news. Super exciting player to watch. Obviously brings in viewers to the NBA from overseas and everywhere else. Everybody loves to watch Wemby. So awful to see that news, but sounds like he's going to make a full recovery, which is all we can hope for at this point. Excited to see how his career progresses. Helps the Spurs from a draft pick standpoint.
Sure.
And they're still building out that roster. So they probably weren't doing anything in the playoffs anyway. Not the end of the world, assuming that Wemby does come back as a full recovery.
Yeah, but that will impact our slate, obviously, here today. And we'll go over the Spurs. We'll go over their matchup today against the Phoenix Suns. It is a high game total matchup on the board tonight. It's like 234.5. Even with no Wemby, it's like a 1.5 point spread or something still. So like they still think San Antonio is going to be able to hold their own against Phoenix. And now we're going to have some value. And we'll get the center, but Jeremy Sohan's been playing the backup 5 with Bassey out, and he is pretty cheap on tonight's slate. So we'll see if that's a direction we go with San Antonio. We also highlighted De'Aaron Fox and his price tag on the preview show. Well, that looks a hell of a lot better now on this slate. So we'll get into all of that. We appreciate you guys tuning in here. Love to have all of you back. Stacks in the chat. David in the chat with us here. Greeny popping in, saying hello as well. Let's pick some winners. Definitely going to pick some winners here today. So if you guys have any comments, get in the chat. We'll throw them up on screen. Keith and I will help you guys out here tonight. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. It's a free way to support the show. We are here every day live at 5 p.m. Eastern time. We do a preview show that we release the night before each slate to get you guys ready for the next day's action of NBA. So a lot of cool things here happening over at Fantasy Alarm, and we love to have you guys with us here as well. Grande popping in, tuning into the show while on vacation. Well, happy Grande. Happy to have you here with us. And Rolly in the chat as well saying hello, fellas. Top price guys overall, Nikola Jokic, 12.5 with a questionable Giannis at 11.5. Luka got ruled out right before we went live. So Luka in the back-to-back not going to play. We'll see if LeBron James plays or not on the second leg of a back-to-back here. Questionable after playing last night. Looking damn good playing last night against Charlotte. So much for that foot injury that kept them out of the All-Star game. We'll see if he gets in there against Portland or not. And then Tatum up over $10,000. Looking at the point guard position, again, we're now without Doncic and Ball tonight. So take both of those guys out. Maxey, Lillard, Young, Harden, Booker are your 9K and above tier. Are any of them more appealing to you than the guys that we have below? Because there's some good matchups and now some great value to target as well.
They're not more appealing. I wouldn't use that term, but they are interesting for large field tournaments. James Harden in particular is the guy that's shown quite a bit of ceiling here. Don't mind the matchup there against Milwaukee. Trae Young is in a really tough matchup against Orlando, but a guy who has shown off a big ceiling as well. I prefer those two over the higher priced Maxey and Lillard, who are both in their own very tough matchups. Yeah. So kind of just tough matchups all around for this top group. I think there's definitely better values in the mid-range and even cheaper. So, but having some exposure if you're playing more than one lineup, not a terrible idea. It's Harden and Young at the top.
Yeah, the Harden one is interesting because Norm Powell popped on the injury report in the middle of the afternoon here today as questionable. So if Norm ends up not playing, we've talked a lot about how productive he has been from a scoring perspective. If you take him off the floor, will certainly impact their rotation, and we'll see who ends up actually playing for the Clippers here tonight. You go down a little bit lower. John Morant, cover of today's live stream, 249.5 game total. Memphis, Indiana, slate high. He's $8,500. Brunson, 84 in that other high total game, up over 240 points against Chicago. Could have a solo Austin Reeves against Portland at $8,200. We already know no Luka, maybe no LeBron tonight. He got ejected last night against Charlotte for complaining to the refs. Halliburton 8K and the other side of that matchup against Morant. And then again, De'Aaron Fox is $7,900 now. No Wembanyama against Phoenix.
Yeah, this is a loaded range. Love a lot of the names that you mentioned there. Jalen Brunson jumps off the page. His splits with Josh Hart off the floor are actually really intriguing. We loved Cat last night. We said we'd like Brunson too, but I think we were more on Cat last night. Digging into the Knicks stuff with Josh Hart off, Brunson gets a 7.3% assist rate boost, a slight usage bump boost, and a slight rebounding boost as well. So, and then you add in the matchup against the Bulls, which is one of the best matchups. We've been targeting it all year long. Like, Brunson is just in a phenomenal spot here. We loved De'Aaron Fox last night as well. Now you have no Wemby. Fox is looking at like 30+% usage in this spot. Should be the leading scorer here. He's way too cheap for this role. Probably 2K underpriced, you could argue, for De'Aaron Fox. I mean, a 30 to 35% usage rate would surprise no one in this spot. Ja Morant is another guy that I have a ton of tournament interest in. Should be much lower owned than the first two guys that we just talked about. But this game environment, I've seen the total as high as 251 today. Two extremely fast-paced teams. I know Ja hasn't found a ceiling as often as we would like this season, but man, this game environment is extremely tempting.
Yeah, no, I agree with you 100%. Obviously, whenever we've seen Ja Morant extended, for the most part, his production's been pretty much off the charts. Good to see him over the 30 minutes in the two games prior that he took the floor. So yeah, like you said, loaded tier. Got to take a look at some of the ownership numbers going to come in here. Usually right around 6:30 here today once we get off the show, and we'll see where ownership is going to be going at the point guard position because there are so many options. You go a little bit lower, you have Garland, Giddey, you have Derek White here, Anthony Simons, Stephen Castle, and Russell Westbrook. Castle obviously now becomes a bit more interesting. Again, I understand they're healthy at the guard spot, but no Wemby, just usage just becomes available for guys on the floor.
Yeah, the Castle thing is what we're looking at. We talked about the inconsistency in the minutes a little bit last night. So we don't really know what we're getting. You might get 20. If you can get 25, 26, he'd be looking really good. So uncertainty with the minutes, potential for upper 20s there. Like the matchup a lot against Phoenix. They've been awful on the defensive end this season. Simon's another guy that we highlighted. Just love him for the ceiling. The Lakers don't play much defense at this point. So really like the ceiling there as well.
Yeah, 100% in agreement with you. Again, we know Simon's usually leading that team in shots and obviously has a super high scoring ceiling. Where are we looking to go when it comes to value at the point guard position now?
Chris Paul has to be one of the first looks, I think. Wemby leaves behind over 30% usage. Paul, not a guy who generally has a ton of usage, but he's going to have more than he generally does in this spot. He actually, this season so far, has received the biggest usage bump for the Spurs with Wemby out of the lineup, up over 5% boost. So really like Chris Paul at 5,300 there.
Do you think Ben Simmons now, if there's no Norm Powell, becomes even more appealing? Again, we talked about his debut, 27 minutes for them, 12, 7, and 6. He was in that closing lineup for them as well. It would seem almost unlikely that he'd play like any less minutes if Norm Powell wasn't going to be on the floor.
Yeah, I definitely think that could have an impact on his minutes. Simmons not a guy that you typically look at that picks up a ton of usage, and that's basically what Powell does. So I'm not sure how much he benefits. Somebody like Harden or Kawhi, I think, would benefit a lot more by the Powell missing. But I'm still interested in Simmons because of the minutes production that you just mentioned. Kawhi was out for that game. He's back in this one, so maybe he doesn't quite see 27 if Powell plays. But I think low 20s, mid 20s even is possible, and he's a pretty good per minute producer. So I still have interest in Simmons.
Yeah, Kawhi, became one of my favorite plays as well. Once we got that news that there may be no Norm again, late game, so we'll have to kind of wait and see. Or middle slate game rather, wait and see where that one in lineup kind of comes through. You mentioned Cole Anthony last night. Lonzo Ball's off the injury report. He was starting in that sort of 4-guard lineup. No Patrick Williams for Chicago, so they could go back to that small lineup for Chicago. He's $5K. Drew Holiday's off the injury report. He's $4,400. No LaMelo. Got KJ Simpson here at 42. Any interest in some value down here?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Charlotte guys for sure. Elfrid Payton is there as well, who's 4K. I think that's my lean on who I'm looking at for Charlotte. We've seen him produce big games when given opportunity in the past.
Sure.
Don't mind Simpson either, though. He should see plenty of run here in this spot. Super deep field tournaments, I think you can take a look at Cameron Payne. We've talked about how awful the Bulls have been. If there's a blowout situation here, Cameron Payne in that 3K range could see 20-plus minutes. I mean, I'm talking super large field tournaments, but Payne is an interesting name to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I like that. Shooting guard. Again, Devin Booker's up here at 9K. You have Donovan Mitchell. We mentioned Austin Reeves. Jamal Murray and Jaylen Brown are up over $8,000.
Sorry, I lost my place there.
No worries. Shooting guard.
Yeah, Devin Booker, somebody I'm looking at quite a bit. Him and Durant seem to alternate ceiling games. It's been Durant the last 2 games. Booker went off for a crazy night 3 games ago. So I like the Suns and the spot that they're in against the Spurs, especially without Wembanyama. Wemby obviously impacts their defense greatly as he was the defensive player of the year favorite before he got injured. So Booker, I think, can find a ceiling here. Jamal Murray has been playing incredible. Denver a lot more healthy now. But I think he could certainly still find a ceiling. Love the matchup for him against Charlotte.
Yeah, for sure. Any other guys in this mid-tier range? Again, obviously there's some Knicks with Mikal Bridges with no Josh Hart. You have your San Antonio plays, some more Portland guys in this range. Anybody for you specifically?
Yeah, Desmond Bane, a name I want to talk about, that game environment. He's been super consistent here. He's put up like 35 points basically every night out. The ceiling has kind of been capped around 45, but we've seen him go for 50 plus in the past. Mm-hmm. This is the type of game environment where I certainly think he could do that. Kobe White is another name. He has been awful recently, as has the entire Bulls team. But without Zach LaVine, we've seen him put up big performances before.
Yeah.
I don't know what the deal is with him, why he's not shooting much, why he's not shooting well. It's not the best matchup against the Knicks, but man, the opportunity sure is there for Kobe White to take another step forward with Zach LaVine now shipped out of town.
Yeah, I wonder if like getting Lonzo back in that lineup, a guy that can actually be the point guard, be the facilitator, helps Kobe White maybe play off the ball a little bit more, can move around and get an opportunity to get some open shots.
Yep, I like that. And Bridges is another guy who's been struggling. But without Josh Hart, like you have to think he's going to play upper 30s minutes in this spot, even if the shots aren't going. There's tons of stocks available against this Bulls team who's just a sloppy mess at this point. So I do like Bridges a good amount.
Yep. Let's see. You mentioned down here Bradley Beal, $6,200. Again, they're healthy. Well, Phoenix going into this game. Could take a look at him there. And then everybody in San Antonio said, like, kind of takes a step up. Devin Vassell's $5,800. It's already playing a bunch of minutes. There's going to be more opportunities for this guy to shoot. We always felt he was pretty talented. I like the price here of Vassell for $58.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about the usage that's out of the lineup with Wemby. Vassell is a prime candidate. Like, Fox is going to get his. But then I think Vassell is probably the second option in the offense. I mentioned Chris Paul doesn't necessarily shoot a ton. Vassell does shoot a ton.
Yeah.
He leads the Spurs in usage with Wemby off the floor, up around 25.5%.
Yeah.
So like he should have a ton of shots available for him tonight.
Yeah, a lot of potential upside with Vassell. Again, we're gonna have to figure out and look what this new normal will look like with San Antonio not having Wemby on the floor. Karis LeVert, as we mentioned, has looked really good for Atlanta. It's a tough spot against Orlando. Big pace down spot. I think we kind of like the Orlando other side of this, but LeVert at 53 getting big minutes here. He had that matchup in Orlando already and came through 32 fantasy points. Do we think we get another 6x out of him here tonight?
It could happen. I don't love, or I'm sorry, I do hate the matchup is the only problem. That's what I'm seeing with LeVert. Also, he had a bunch of rebounds in that last performance. which
last two games, 10 and 8 rebounds last
yeah.
two games, right?
Do we feel that's sticky? I don't know if I'm really seeing LeVert as an 8 to 10 rebound guy going forward.
Yeah, listen, it's kind of interesting. Grande and I talk about this a lot, right? You have to sort of ignore almost like the situation they were in previously and just see how they're now acting with their new team. He was never going to get a lot of rebounds with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen there. You look at Atlanta. Well, who's there to really rebound the basketball? They don't have Jalen Johnson anymore. They have a smaller center, Okonkwo. Maybe Caris LeVert does go out there, and all of a sudden these like long rebounds are available for him to sort of go out there. Rebounds are also always about effort, right? In the NBA, if you want to go be a good rebounder, you can be a good rebounder because half the guys are already running up the floor by the time the shot's taken. So opportunities. But I agree with you. Like if we see a third straight game where maybe he gets like 5 or 6 rebounds, like all right, like this is a real deal. It's why we've been hammering those Jalen Duren's assists lately. You know, they all of a sudden he's just an assist machine. It's just the way that lineup's looking like now.
How long do we say Josh Hart isn't going to continue to rebound like that? And
yeah,
that's all he's done.
All he does is rebound, right? Exactly. Do you think they go small? Do you think we see Precious Achiuwa start for Josh Hart tonight? What do you think they do?
I think it's Achiuwa. He's been playing really well in the absence of Anunoby. Obviously Hart and Anunoby don't play the same position because they start together, but positions are pretty much irrelevant. It could be
McBride down here at 4K.
Yeah.
You know,
I don't mind him as a deep tournament throw, but I think it's Achiuwa in the starting lineup. If McBride is in the starting lineup, then obviously the conversation changes a little bit.
Agreed. Nick Smith Jr., someone that takes a lot of shots when there's no LaMelo Ball. You know, you mentioned obviously, and Grande popped in here too. Alf over Simpson. Simpson's been a DNP the last 2 games. So you got Alf as like the facilitating point guard. Nick Smith's going to be out there taking a lot of shots tonight against Denver. Yeah,
I love that call. Probably my favorite play in this range. Going to catch some ownership, but the opportunity will certainly be there with LaMelo off the floor.
Agreed. Anybody else shooting guard for you?
I think that...
So does Jordan Goodwin pique your interest at all? Or like the Gabe Vincent with no Luka tonight?
Neither of those guys are doing very much for me.
Okay, I agree. I'm just wondering. You know, never know where these guys are coming from. All right, small forward. LeBron is 10-2. We'll see if LeBron plays or not on the second leg of this back-to-back. Again, they already ruled out Luka Doncic. I got Jason Tatum at 10K, and then we go down. Franz Wagner's $8,600. That probably goes down to like Kawhi Leonard at 71, right? No part. Powell's questionable. We don't really like Paul George right now. What are your thoughts on the top half of small forward?
Yeah, up in the 10K range, I really liked LeBron, even with Luka in there. So without Luka, LeBron looks really good, assuming that he plays. Portland, not a strong defensive team whatsoever. LeBron played really, really well last night. Obviously, a 40-year-old guy on a back-to-back, there's a little bit of risk there, but he has played really well. I went through some of this stuff when writing up the playbook. He's played well on back-to-backs this season, so I'm not concerned about him. He's obviously in tremendous shape. He's one of the best athletes in the world. So yeah, back-to-back, I'm not concerned about. Tatum is interesting to me as well. I like the matchup against Philly. He absolutely smashed them last time they played. Embiid was out for that game, so grain of salt there. But Tatum played 44 minutes in that game against Philly. We know these guys are rivals. We've seen rivalry games, the stars get extended a little bit before. I saw that 44-minute number, and I thought it had to have been an overtime game. You know, it was 44 of 48 minutes. So Tatum has literally 40-plus minute upside here tonight.
Yeah, I don't mind if you're looking to spend up. Of course, again, Wagner for us in this matchup against Atlanta. Again, last night he was one of our favorite plays, just sort of given the pace of this game. He went for 54. As you can see there, fantasy points, almost 55 fantasy points in this exact matchup against Atlanta. 2 games prior to the break, 37 actual. Multiple 30-plus actual games for him. He's kind of having a breakout season, even with Paolo Banchero back. But would you rather him at 86, or would you rather take a look at Kawhi Leonard, who got up over 30 minutes now, 3 straight games? Maybe Norman Powell, only $7,100 for him here.
I like both of them a ton. Franz is still absolutely one of my favorite plays on the slate. That has not changed at all. Just talked about how good he has been this season, and then he gets this elite matchup as well, which he just crushed, 2 games ago?
Yeah.
So I think it's Franz slightly, but that Kawhi price is so tempting. So I like him a ton. Chance you could play them both. You can use the forward utility spot and play them both because they're 2 of my favorites.
Yeah, for sure. Again, there's not many times where Kawhi Leonard isn't paying off a $7K price tag if he's getting 30 plus minutes. So Definitely like the opportunity for him, especially if there's no Norm Powell today.
Before he rested in that game, right before the break, he had been in over 30 plus in 3 straight as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So he should be locked in 30 plus tonight against
Yeah.
Milwaukee. So I'm in there. Next tier down again, Denver's fully healthy tonight. Again, I know Porter's probable, but again, no one's questionable for tonight. Are you interested in this matchup against Charlotte? It's obviously a spot where we don't think Charlotte's going to be, overly competitive. I know we thought that many times before, and we've ended up being surprised in how games can stay close. But Denver's home as a 15.5-point favorite. Would you look at Porter or Brown or anybody here tonight?
Porter's the one I have interest in, and obviously Denver is much healthier than they have been when he was smashing. But before that hamstring injury, he put up 3 straight games of 30 plus points, and he was flirting with 40 in a couple of them. So that's what we want from Michael Porter Jr. is him just launching 3-pointers. That's where he finds his ceiling at.
Yep.
He can still do that even with Russell Westbrook and Aaron Gordon and some of the guys that have missed being back now. So still some interest in MPJ.
Yep, I agree. Where are you at Kuzma? Bobby Portis suspended 25 games for substance abuse violation. He claimed he took a painkiller that his assistant said was approved by the league, but then it wasn't approved by the league. The classic, throw your trainer under the bus for doing things you're not supposed to do. But obviously, Portis was playing a backup forward spot. He's not there anymore. Does Kuzma become more appealing knowing that that's not going to be on the floor?
More appealing than he would have been. Giannis expected back, definitely. And I think that's been a reason he's benefited greatly. He's still going to be a big part of this rotation. We saw Middleton have success as the third guy a lot in this lineup. So Kuzma could do that same type of thing. The price tag is at a fair spot where I don't mind some shots on him. We'll talk about Giannis in a minute, but I think him being back definitely impact Kuzma's ceiling, but I still have interest.
Hachimura again playing a whole bunch of minutes, was good again last night, and now there's no Luka, maybe no LeBron tonight. $6,100. Rui certainly just sort of settled into a very reliable play. Probably good for cash games, but I think if he did better than 1 from 8 from 3, you'd be looking at tournament upside last night. So I wouldn't even mind going back to the well here with Hachimura.
Yeah, I was kind of lukewarm on him last night when you mentioned him. And then he went out and played really well in that game. And it's like, man, I probably understated that a little bit. And now without Luka, I think he's definitely viable. You mentioned he shot poorly and he still put up fantasy points. So the shots start falling. I think there is a ceiling there.
Yeah, for sure. 7 of 16 from the floor, 1 of 8 from 3. And he's been a better 3-point shooter than that of late. So you got Portland here. Not a great defensive team. They have a couple of good individual defensive players, but not a great defensive team. Anybody else here for small forward as we work our way down the list?
Let me see. Harrison Barnes, a guy I definitely want to mention. We've seen him pop off in games before. In fact, what was that? A couple weeks ago, I think almost a month ago now, he had like 30 fantasy points in 3 straight games. It was the end of January. So like,
I have like a very crazy, super small sample size stat here, but with De'Aaron Fox on the floor and Victor Wembanyama off the floor this year, Harrison Barnes is a 33% usage rate. It's in 43 minute sample size. So, if there was ever a time for that's not Julian Strother, but if there was ever a time for Harrison Barnes to give us a Harry B ceiling game, maybe this is it. If he's going to become a 33% usage player with no Wemby, turn back the clocks, Harrison Barnes.
Yep. Could happen.
Could happen at $4,800. Said Hunter's been starting for Cleveland. It's Brooklyn's not great, but there is that spot for him there. Maybe Bogdan draws a start if Norm Powell's out. Would you have any interest that ends up happening?
Slight interest, I suppose. He's at 4,700. Yeah, I mean he'd be in play. I worry about I think Harden and Kawhi still soak up a lot of the usage, and Bogdan really needs that usage. So I don't know. Like when Trae Young used to miss in his Hawks days, surprisingly Bogdan did not benefit from that because he was already a high usage guy off the bench, and then if he slid into the starting lineup, then he's playing with a lot more high usage players. So. Sure. I'd be lukewarm. I'd be interested, but not as much as you might think with a major usage guy out.
Yeah. Warren says Max Strus. What are your thoughts on Strus here? Again, playing decent minutes. hitting his threes, which is what they need him to do in that lineup. I think he's worth a throw here at 4,500.
He's worth a dart throw. I think he can definitely pay off that price and give you a score that helps you out in tournaments. There's some guys ahead of him, certainly, that we've talked about, but he's in play.
Let's see. Any other value down here that you have interest in? Champagny or Keldon Johnson at 4K and 39?
Keldon would be the name that stands out there for sure. Just with the additional usage to go around. Not sure what the minute. He's kind of been in that 25 minutes as a cap here all season long. So don't expect 30 minutes out of him by any means. But I think he could pay off here.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what that rotation ends up looking like now. Again, they've been playing Sohan as their backup 5. I don't know. They obviously traded Zach Collins. Let's see, what do they have for a healthy center? So Bassey's already out. I get Biombo. Do we get some Bismack here tonight?
That'd be interesting
as a backup center. So I'm just wondering where if we would get some smaller lineups that would have Keldon out there, because I like the Keldon call too. I think the price in tournaments is really nice there.
Sandro's the other name. I mean, Mamu Kalashvili.
Mamu is giving us the fantasy point per minute monster there whenever that guy gets
for sure. I mean, if he gets on there for 15, 16 minutes, that might be enough.
Yeah, exactly. Neesmith obviously fluctuates with his minutes. He hasn't been great. Anything else that you'd look at here?
I think that covers it.
All right. Power forward. Let's see. What did Warren say? What do we think about Mikal Bridges if no OG? I mean, listen, no Josh Hart, maybe no OG. There's certainly opportunities for Mikal Bridges, but his ceilings and floors have been very high and very low this year. So we just think it's going to be a dominant game for Brunson and Towns, more so than Mikal at that price point for us. So, Giannis though, 11-5, expected to come back. We think. Where are we with Giannis in terms of overall spend ups today?
How many times can you play a top 2-3 fantasy producer in the entire league at like 2% ownership? Because I think that's what you're getting Giannis at tonight. He's been out with injury, obviously. Who knows what the minutes are going to look like? It was a leg injury as well, a calf. So it's not like he's been conditioning this whole time. I am concerned about the minutes, but his ceiling is one of the best in the league, and nobody's playing him tonight.
Isn't it the best time to do that, right? Grande and I talked about this a lot. It feels like it's obvious strategy, right? Where it's like you look at the projections, you look at the ownership, you're like, oh, this guy could be the highest scoring player on the slate, and he's at 6%. Like, let's just throw him in a lineup. Let's see what happens. And sometimes that happens. Usually that's what we do with Jokic, where it's like Jokic is only 20% today. He can score 100. Let's ride. All right, so you got Giannis at 11-5. You got KD at 92, not having a deal. Kind of kills what we talked about last night, right? The Bull, KD, Wemby. We're all ready for the freaks out there, but no Wemby now. But you got KD at 92. Miles Bridges, no LaMelo at 87. Mobley, Banchero, and Triple J in that 8K range.
Yeah, Durant is really interesting. Same as Booker. Like, one of these guys is probably going for a ceiling game. The problem is you don't know which one. So you just if you're playing more than one lineup, you should have exposure to Booker and Durant. I can't sit here and tell you that I know which guy is going to go off tonight, but one of them has a good shot too.
Agreed. If you're playing over on Prize Picks today, I just wrote out my Prize Picks pick'em article. They have a discounted Durant at 22.5 points. So I put that in there. That felt like a pretty good take tonight against San Antonio. Some ridiculous minutes here: 42, 43, and 46. I would imagine, was there an overtime? It had to have been overtime. Or is KD just out here playing just ridiculous minutes here? Because those are insane.
Those are big numbers. I'm not sure off the top of my head without going and looking.
Yeah, I'm trying to scroll back quickly on some box scores here. I guess I should have had that pulled up ahead of time. Was there any OT here? Doesn't look like he just played regulation 40 plus minutes against Houston. So if they're going to start throwing this dude out there for 40 plus, that's a great buy at 92. Where are you kind of with the group below? Is it Triple J against Indiana 81?
I like Triple J. I like a couple guys a little bit more expensive more. Miles Bridges, that's a steep price tag for Miles Bridges, but without LaMelo, he gets a huge usage bump. If Charlotte is going to keep up in this game, it's probably going to be on the back of Miles Bridges. So I certainly don't mind taking some stabs there. Paolo is a guy that I like a ton. Again, slight preference for Franz. He's shown a better ceiling recently, but Paolo's been playing really well, and this is an awesome matchup against a really fast-paced team. So I want some shots on Paolo as well. Triple J, is in the conversation as well, just because of the game environment.
Yep, agreed. I like Siakam on the other side of that as well at $7,800. We've just seen some really good protection out of him. And you look at that game total again, 249.5. And a close spread too. It's not like it's a blowout. It's going to be a competitive game here. Expected at least to be a competitive game between these two teams. What about the next group down? A lot of these guys we've touched on, but you have Precious at 57, and then Io is someone that you were high on. If you were going to take someone from the Chicago side of this game last night, are those still the two for you?
I need to talk about Precious Achiuwa, a guy that we didn't touch on much last night, but we think that he starts in this spot with Josh Hart now getting ruled out. So I prefer Precious, who's right there in that range. I don't mind Io. I think just because the Bulls need some scoring from somewhere, Io does a little bit of everything on top of the scoring. So I do still have interest. It has waned a little bit since last night, though.
Sure. Value power forward. Are we still in on Bol at 4,800?
Yeah, I am. It's really interesting. I dug into the rotation stuff a little bit today.
Okay.
It's Ryan Dunn that he has passed in the rotation, and he's playing the backup five a little bit over Mason Plumlee. Like Plumlee's playing 12 to 14 minutes. Losing the name of the starter there. Nick Richards is only playing like 20, 21 minutes. So there's still a little bit left over for Bull. He's playing those minutes, and then he's playing a lot at the four as well. So even though Beal's back, and that's another body to add to the rotation, I still think he's ahead of Plumlee and he's ahead of Dunn. So he should see mid-20s minutes in this spot, and he's been a great producer anytime he's given opportunities. So I am still in on Bull.
Yep. And then for me, I'm still going out with Santi Aldama. I took the over 11 points for him tonight. When he's played over 20 minutes this year, he's basically always gone over for the most part, the 11 points. But we've gotten 24, 23, and 25 the last three. And as I said on the show last night, I just don't know if Zach Edey's going to be able to run around and chase after Miles Turner. Could put Santi Aldama in a spot to play again mid-20s minutes, and he's a guy that is very productive when on the floor at $4,500.
As soon as you said that on the show last night, a little light bulb went off, and I was like, man, John, that's a great take. I gave you a little shout out in the playbook. I am fully on board with your take here that Edey just cannot follow Miles Turner out to the perimeter. And if they just let him roam out there, Turner's going to have a bunch of threes.
Yeah.
So that makes Turner an interesting tournament play in his own right. We'll get there. But Santi Aldama is the guy that benefits if Zach Edey cannot keep up in this extremely fast-paced game.
Yeah.
We've seen him go for a ton of rebounds before. If he gets his 24 minutes pretty much nightly anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If he has to go out there and run some center behind Edey because he can't play, we could see 28, 30, 32 minutes in this spot for Santi. And at this price, he can crush.
Yeah, and the ability to have Triple J kind of shift into the five as well, allow Santi to play a little bit more on the perimeter, all of that benefits. But like you said, like he's averaging like 24, 25 minutes a game on just in general. And then you look at his fantasy points, like to me, always one of my favorite dart throw tournament plays, Santi Aldama. And tonight it just feels like the perfect spot. But Chalk is Sohan. I just pulled out some ownership. He's 65%. Again, power forward center eligible, helping that. He's been the backup center here. I don't know if they're going to fully let him get like 35 minutes tonight, if they're going to throw Bismack Biyombo out there or something tonight, or Mamu even. But this guy earlier this year, remember, like he was putting up some huge fantasy points. And then, I don't know, they like took him out of the rotation a little bit. Like, I don't know what happened, but whenever he's been extended for the most part, like he has put up some big numbers here. 7, 8x, 9x potential tonight, I think, at 4,500.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how the Spurs handle this. They traded Zach Collins. Chris Bassey is out tonight. So they are extremely thin in the front court. Sohan has not played over 30 minutes in like a month and a half. Mm-hmm. It's been insane. He was a guy they seemed to be high on coming into the season. He was getting a ton of opportunities early in the season. I don't know if he fell out of favor or the conditioning hasn't been there or what the reason is. But if Sohan can play 30 minutes, he's a phenomenal play. It remains to be determined if that's going to be the case. But I think his upside is too good to ignore. I hate that the ownership is as high as it is, but the opportunity should be incredible for him.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's go to center. Again, Nikola Jokic is here at 12.5. He's got Charlotte. He went for over 80 fantasy points in this matchup. There's a lot of value now available if you want to get to Joker tonight. Like, no one's ever going to tell you not to play him. But you have Embiid at 99. Well, last time we've seen Embiid basically 38 minutes. They keep telling us like they're going to limit this guy, and he goes out there and plays all the minutes. You get an under 10K Joel Embiid against Boston, a matchup he has historically done really well against. And then you have Karl Anthony Towns, who in the 2 games against Chicago is averaging 73 fantasy points. So, if you want to play Joker, that's fine. But there are other spend-up centers, I think, in good spots tonight if you want to go there.
Yeah, tough decisions to be made at the top of center tonight because I love all 3 of those guys that you just mentioned. Joker is 12.5K on DK, almost 13K on FanDuel. So it is a tough squeeze. The matchup against Charlotte is incredible, though, especially with Mark Williams out, who's their best defender at the center position. Jokic has really dominated the Nurkic matchup. They were connected. I think they were both drafted by Denver.
Yeah.
They've been connected. So that matchup has been compared throughout the years, and Jokic has obviously dominated it. So awesome spot for Jokic. The ownership number on him, like we talked about with Giannis, looks really, really good tonight.
Yeah.
Towns in a vacuum is the clear and away favorite play. He has just owned the Chicago Bulls. He scored over 40 points against them twice this season, 44 and 46, I believe. Just a matchup he absolutely dominates. The Bulls allow a ton of points in the paint. Everything on paper screams Towns is going for 65 plus fantasy points here. So why do I need to spend up to Jokic? And that's why nobody's playing Jokic. But it's
25% I see on Towns right now. It's not only just like the scoring. He's already had good rebounding numbers, but now you're taking away Josh Hart, who has been an elite rebounder, right? Like there's potentially that Towns gets even more rebound opportunities taking a double-digit rebound guy off the floor. And Hart, Precious has been a good rebounder having to play next to Towns. All 3 of them, nobody's been able to rebound against them. It's just opportunities now for Towns. I'm definitely still on the Towns train here.
40 and 20 is absolutely within his range of outcomes.
Insane. Mid-tier range, though. You got Jackson, we talked about. Mobley, we talked about. You got Porzingis, Vucevic, and the other side there. Zubac at $7,500.
Yeah, Vuce has been less than inspired here recently. He did have a good game his last time out. There is ceiling here without Zach LaVine. So I don't want to completely write him off. He's just not a guy I really want to get to tonight. Zubac, we saw him fall out of favor in that last game as well. So I'm kind of lukewarm on him. This is a range outside of Triple J, who we talked about already. I'm kind of just skipping over. There are some cheaper guys that I like, but I'm not super interested in this 7K range.
Yeah, tournaments again. I still, we like everybody in this game. Miles Turner, obviously, 6K certainly has some nice upside. If we could get that going, he went for 24 fantasy points in that first matchup against him. Didn't have a great shooting game there, but at 6K is kind of interesting. And then Donovan Clingan, no Ayton, going to miss some time here. 17 points, 20 rebounds against Denver. Now he's got a Lakers team here tonight at 5,600. If he's going to be playing these kind of minutes, some nice upside at 56.
Yeah, absolutely. I do have some concerns similar to the Zach Edey concerns that we mentioned. The Lakers are really without a true center. Jackson Hayes will play some, but outside of that, they're pretty small. So does Clingan get run off the floor here is my biggest concern. If he's able to keep up, I think he has elite potential here tonight, like 20 rebound potential. We just saw it in his last game. The Lakers don't have much rebounding, as I mentioned, but that's also the concern for why he could get run off the floor a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And he's a guy that certainly, again, has plenty of times this year split minutes, right? So there's no guarantee. Where else are you looking for value? You mentioned you had some values you do like.
Yeah, Clingan was a guy I definitely wanted to talk about. Okongwu, I think, is a little bit interesting. We saw him find the ceiling. It's a brutal matchup against Orlando. So I do prefer Miles Turner right there in the same range, but just wanted to mention Okongwu. The Spurs situation is interesting. I have no idea if Mamu's going to play tonight or not, but we talked about him as a per-minute producer. He is really interesting. Nurkic is the other guy. I don't know if he plays more than 20 minutes, but Jokic
they said they were going to kind of limit him there. Obviously, no Mark Williams. I imagine Diabate gets probably just split run, in that game. Diabate obviously didn't play yesterday against the Lakers. He was the DMP with Williams and Nurkic getting the run. Nurkic probably starts, and Diabate gets minutes after him, and they just split the run, I would imagine, right?
Yep, I believe so. Like probably just they each play slightly over 20 minutes, and it is what it is. So I think for that reason, they're both in play for tournaments. I like Diabate just as much. Sure.
And then, of course, Sohan's here as well.
Yep.
You mentioned the Lakers could go small. They could go Dorian Finney-Smith as a small ball center. Anything else at center for you?
Let's see. Day'Ron Sharp, another guy who can really do it big per minute, but doesn't get enough minutes really.
Yeah.
But with Cleveland, they have two bigs. Maybe he sees some extended run. So that's super large field tournament only, but interesting name.
No, listen, we always find these high fantasy point per minute guys. Jalen Smith is another one that kind of just like gets on the floor and like will give you 20 plus fantasy points. It doesn't really matter how many minutes he's on the floor for the most part. He just is out there 2 games against them, 13 minutes, 14 fantasy points. So obviously not great, DVP or box scores against them, but another guy that kind of fits that same mold. Batum was someone that got a lot of run. And I think Zubac was out of it. Was Zubac in that game against Utah?
He was in foul trouble, I believe, is what happened with Zubac.
I remember just seeing the rotation minutes the other day. It's like, why did Batum play all those minutes? All right, let's get a lineup going then here. I feel like we got to plug Sohan probably just at power forward, just for the sake of if I can spell his name right. And then we'll go Towns at center.
Yep.
And then we're both in on the Aldama play, so we'll plug him at just a forward spot. And then where do we get?
Fox is a guy you got to have, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. Fox at point guard. All right, 58.50.
All right, time to start saving some money.
Time to start looking at the value.
Yeah. I like Alfred Payton. I like Bull.
Payton's a good call. I like the Payton play here. 4K. 6,500 up thing there. Small forward, shooting guard, and util.
Let's see here.
You mentioned Bull, right? We'll just throw him in the util spot there. 7,300 shooting guard, small forward.
Now we got some money to work with.
Here. Actually, we can even do this. Let's do this. We can throw Elf in the guard. We'll throw Fox in at shooting guard, so that gives us the guard eligibility there.
Franz is
forward guard.
Franz is probably my favorite play at small forward. If we're looking at, let's see what that leaves us with.
6K guard. 6K guard can be Vassell.
Love it.
Payton, Fox, Wagner, Sohan, Towns, Vassell, Aldama, and Bull. Example lineup for everybody here today. Anthony, is Durant a must play because he has center eligibility? I do love Durant in tournaments today for sure. Good matchup against San Antonio. I don't think he's a must play at center. Again, we really like Towns. 60% of the field is playing Sohan, who is center eligible here today. If you want to get to Durant in center, though, certainly can. He just has multi-position eligibility there for you, so you can go there. Can Jokic pay off his salary with everybody healthy? Yes. He's gone for 100 with everybody healthy. Certainly, the offense throws through him. Obviously, again, a 15.5 point spread. There's a likelihood for blow, but the last time these two teams played, it was a 3-point game. So you can go there. Merrill with no Okoro or Wade. I mean, Merrill's fine. It's just it's a matchup against Brooklyn. We're not really expecting much out of Cleveland or that game in general. It's a 9-game slate. You want to kind of target high-scoring matchups, kind of what we're looking for. So if you like the Merrill value here today, $3,600. The minutes have obviously been good. He's fine. Again, it's what you expect him to get in a non-competitive game. So he hits his shots, he hits his threes. He can pay it off. Again, not building core lineups around him, but if you want to put him in your player pool, that's fine. And then John Isaac, $3,400. Again, what are you getting out of John Isaac here? It's tournament play only. Everybody's healthy for them, so it's difficult to see like a huge minutes bump. So all good there. Again, Keith's got your playbook out. We'll be in the Discord. Roster lock tonight is at 7:00 Eastern time. So stay in there for all the lineup news and notes. But again, Payton, Fox, Wagner, Sohan, Towns, Vassell, Aldama, and Bull is our example lineup. Josh, the last question. Bismack tonight, double center with Towns or Jokic. I'm not going to play Bismack because I don't know how many minutes Bismack will play. He hasn't played a game for them yet. So it's very difficult to trust that he'll see more than 15 minutes if they give Sohan full run tonight. They play small. I don't think Bismack's going to go out there and play 30. So a little tough for me to get the Bismack in that spot. So, guys, we appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow. Be on the lookout for the preview show a little bit later on tonight.